Hello and welcome to Astronomy and Sailing YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to be processing some Iris nebula data supplied by Tim Cowell from the Backyard Astro Imaging Club on Facebook. He's supplied light frames, dark frames and flat frames available to the public, members of the Backyard Astro Imaging Club. I'm going to be using Astro Pixel Processor version 1.077 for the stacking and Star Tools for processing. Then I'm going to do a final touch up with Photoshop Express. To start off with, I'm going to load my frames into Astro Pixel Processor. I'm going to choose and force the Bayer array and go straight to load light frames. Don't want to activate multi-session or different channels. Now, as I've stacked these before, I've got the master dark and master flat, so I'm just going to load the masters. So there's the master dark, open, master flat, master flat, open. Now I'm going to leave everything set as it is. I'm not going to change anything at all. We go to integrate. It's on a automatic setting, so it decides what it thinks the best stack and the best settings. You don't need to touch anything basically. This is how I stacked it the first way. So just go to integrate and it will do all the work for us. So Astro Pixel Processor has done my stacking. I'm going to see what it looks like now. It looks pretty good, as you can see. It's quite a good stack. I'm quite happy with that. That's before any processing has been done, so the data is pretty good. So now we're going to move over to Star Tools for the main processing. I've opened up Star Tools, and in this case I'm using version 1.4334, a slightly older version, but it's one of my favourites. I'm going to open up the Iris data that was stacked with Astro Pixel Processor. And here's it with a one shot colour. I choose that setting. Okay, now I'm going to bin it. I'm going to bin it 50% because it makes the processing a bit quicker for the video. I would normally do 71% for a bit more resolution, but it takes a bit longer to process, so we'll go down to 50%. I'm going to do a manual develop. It's not my final stretch, it's just for cropping out any edges, overlapping frames. We want to keep as much as we can in, so I'll crop a little bit off. And I'm going to go to the wipe module and wipe any gradients. Press temporary auto develop and we can see plenty of dark dust. A little bit of amp glow maybe down there, so I'll raise up the dark anomaly filter, which should get rid of the amp glow. Yeah, there's still a tiny bit down there, but it's definitely a better result, so we're going to keep that. Now we need to redevelop the image after the wipe. I've just got personal settings that I use on most images. A little bit overdeveloped for the moment, but we shall lose some of that during the processing, so I'm going to keep that. You can see it's pretty good data from the start. There's not a lot wrong with this, so it's very nice to work with data so good. Deconvolution, generate a mask automatically. So if we zoom in, that's brought out a bit more detail and made the stars a little bit nicer too, so that's a good job. We're going to keep that. Now I'll go to HDR and have a look what the preset settings do. There's a little bit clearer on detail there again. Let's adjust the settings a little bit and good. I'll keep that. I'm going to go back to HDR and optimize. This can blow the stars a bit sometimes, so we turn the strengths down. Yeah, I quite like that. I'm going to keep that one. So already I'm pretty much ready to do the colour, which can be quite difficult. So see what Starkles comes up with straight away. A bit oversaturated, a bit green, so I'm going to cap the green to yellow. I'm going to bring the dark saturation way up. I'm going to change to artistic detail aware. Already it's much nicer. That's pretty good actually. Quite quick, and I'm not too worried about the final colour at the moment, because in Photoshop Express I'm going to be tweaking the colours slightly. So that's done a pretty good job straight out of the box without any real adjustments. So you should keep that. So I'm almost ready to do my noise reduction now. First of all, for a couple of processes after noise reduction, I want to make a star mask. Oh, done that wrong. Auto. Fat stars. Do. See what he comes up with. Grow that. Make sure it's got all stars. I need to enlarge these bigger stars to reduce the glare a little bit. That's pretty good with the big stars. So now we've got auto stars, add new to old, and I'm going to bring up this filter sensitivity to around 25 and see if this captures the small stars, or most of them. I'm not worried about the tiny stars. We don't want that point involved. It's a good star mask. It's got everything there. So now I'm going to save that one. Iris mask TIFF, and not worried about keeping it, but it will ask us when we stop tracking. Now this is our noise reduction, stop tracking and final noise reduction. With the grain size, we need to get rid of any clumpy pixels, so you can see there a batch of different colour pixels, noisy. We need to raise this up until the clumps are gone. There you can see it's like a one shady area. This is not how the image is going to be finished. It's just to reduce the noise throughout the image. So I'm going to press next, leave that to run for a couple of minutes and come back. StarTools has done the noise reduction. Now it's asking me to set a full mask. Now what I'm going to do is draw a section which will make that little bit of processing quicker, and we can see the difference. Like that. I'm going to do a little bit of noise reduction in Photoshop Express, not much, just a tad more. So that's going to be fine for me. I'm going to save that once it's completed and go on to the next StarTools stage. I don't know if the resolution is going to let you see this, but it has made quite a nice difference in the noise, background noise. Smoothed it out nicely. Now I'm going to open up my mask. Where is mask? Open. And go to magic, and I'm just going to reduce the stars by tightening them. You can see what difference that has. It actually makes the dark dust pop out a bit more. The stars can be overpowering. That's done a great job. I can, by increasing the pixels, I can make the stars a little bit smaller. Each time I do that, they'll get a fraction smaller. I think that one is enough, so I'm going to keep that. Now with the mask, I'm going to invert it and keep it. Now we're going to do some sharpening. Let's see if we can get the dust to pop out a bit more. I'm going to go to large. We don't want to sharpen the stars, which is why I've masked the stars out. It makes all this dark dust pop out a bit more, but I can see the stars there. Being sharpened, so I'm going to go back and go to my mask, invert it. I'm going to grow it Actually, before I do that, I'm going to shrink it once to get rid of any single pixel. I'm going to grow it twice. Make sure I've got all stars covered completely. Even the glow of the stars, we don't want to sharpen that. So we literally want to sharpen the nebula only. Invert that, keep it, and I'm going to go back to sharp. That's a bit too much, so I'm going to half the amount, 50%. That's better. Keep that, and I'm going to do the same again with medium structure size. I should probably reduce that by 50% as well. Yeah. That's better, just a subtle difference. Keep. So I'm pretty much finished with Star Tools now. So I'll save this as a JPEG. As I've done it before, I'll call it 2.jpg. Save. Alright, so done with Star Tools, although while we're here, I'm just going to see what contrast does to it. I prefer that, so I'm going to keep that and save that as RS2JPEG, and I'll overwrite the last file. So finish with that, and I'll go to the next. So next stage is Photoshop Express. It's a free download. It's great for polishing up pictures. I'm going to open up Iris2JPEG. Open. Select this here, this option here, which is all the options of exposure, color, effects, all the little touch-ups we want. So straight away I'm going to go to the shadows and bring down the shadows, perhaps 50%. Contrast. This is all personal preference. Highlights I want to actually tone down a little bit. Yep, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go to detail, sharp, and just a small amount of sharpening. Same with the noise reduction. Now I'm going to slightly adjust the colour overall. So this is the highlights, and this slider here obviously takes you through the spectrum of colours and try and find what I like personally. It can be a personal preference. This is the shadows, so the saturation is personal preference again. I quite like that area around there. The saturation you can bring up and down to suit exactly what you want. There was a blue tint here which that has got rid of, and to me looks a more natural colour. There's all sorts of settings you can play with and adjust saturation, tints and temperatures. I definitely prefer that a little bit less developed. So this is where you see Star Tools, where I'm developing and doing the colour, is not quite so important because I can do the touch-ups here. That's pretty good. You know, I'm pretty much done now. So it's really good data to work with, far better than I can possibly get around my area of light pollution. So it's a pleasure trying these different data sets that Tim's supplying us. So with the data sets, and if you want to try them, come and join the Backyard Astro Imaging Club on Facebook, and all the data sets will be available to you. And after this I shall show you a couple of other images that have been supplied. Thanks for looking.